Good morning, everyone. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and the press who have joined us today for the meeting of this Cabinet. Now, we've got several important issues to consider at today's Cabinet meeting, but before we begin the formal meeting, I have some housekeeping information that I need to share. First, please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's website. Second, the Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and to post to social media during the meeting, although may I please request that that is done so within the confined area of the public and rather not to wander around the areas of the hall. Thank you. And third, can I ask everyone turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place. Finally, in terms of housekeeping notices, there is no fire alarm test scheduled for today. It happened this morning, actually, because I was sat here. So if the alarm does sound, please leave by the nearest marked fire exit and proceed directly to the fire assembly point in Charles Swift Square in front of the multi-storey car park, which is in the direction that I'm pointing right now. So thank you very much. Now, we're going to move into the formal agenda for the Cabinet meeting. Agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Matt, as Senior Democratic Service Officers, please report any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Leader. We have one apology for absence today from Councillor Neil Boyce, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care.
Thank you very much for that, Matt. That is registered and duly noted. And agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest at all? Looking around the room, I don't see anybody raising their hands. Thank you. And moving on, agenda item number 3, minutes of the 15th of July 2025 when we had our last Cabinet meeting. So item number 3 is approval of those minutes for the Cabinet meeting held on the 15th of July, and we are being asked to approve the minutes held on this date as an accurate record. If any member does not agree, would you raise your hand now? I can look around and see that that is not the case, so I'm taking that as being agreed unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item number 4. We have petitions and public questions. We've received none. I have been suitably notified, so thank you very much for that, Matt. Now, we are moving forward to consider our strategic decisions. That is coming on to agenda item number 5. And agenda item number 5 is on pages 11 to 24 of the agenda pack, members. And agenda item number 5 is titled, The Outcome of Petition Debate to Review School Crossing Patrols. Now, this item can be found on the following pages that I've just stipulated. And Councillor Angus Ellis, Cabinet Member for Environment and Transport, please can you introduce the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. As we know, the Council is in a difficult financial position, and this was a saving that was approved as part of the 2024-25 budget unanimously by Council. There have been some concerns raised, and a petition was submitted with 573 signatures seeking the reinstatement of the school crossing patrol service. The petition was debated at our full Council meeting in July, and the outcome was to refer this decision to the next available Cabinet meeting. We recognise that this is an important issue, and we have visited sites and we've had further discussions with ward councillors, and we are proposing to implement additional mitigation measures to support people crossing the road, as detailed in the report. These include a new school crossing by Newark School, temporary school crossing patrols at I until the new zebra crossing is installed, and an upgraded signage and a 20-mile-per-hour zone outside near Warrington School. With these proposed additional mitigations, we are recommending that Cabinet upholds the original decision made by Council as part of the 2024-25 budget.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Now, do members of the Cabinet have any questions at all? Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank Thank you, Leader. I originally called for this to come back to Cabinet. With my portfolio hat on as a teacher, the safety and safeguarding of children is at my utmost thought. Newark Hill Primary School is in my ward, and I've had lots of discussions with Councillor Ellis and Lewis regarding the mitigating factors. One of the things I was questioning was about a potential 20-mile-an-hour limit. I am aware that there's lots of crossings in that area at the moment. Lewis, are you able to explain why a 20-mile-an-hour limit is not suitable for that particular area? Because that was one of my concerns, because outside most primary schools, the limit is reduced regarding the speed that drivers can drive at.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Haiti Cole. Councillor Angus Ellis, would you like to take that?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Cole. And I think it's something which can be looked at. Do you want to update, Lewis, on that bit?
Yeah, sure. With regards to 20 miles an hour, the council's policy at the moment is that the kind of council core funding doesn't fund 20 mile an hour zones, but parish councils and ward councillors through their CLF are able to fund 20 mile an hour roads. Certainly, obviously, with regards specifically to Newark Hill, we feel that within the paper, the best mitigation is to put in a signal control crossing to make sure that people get across the road. But I think if Cabinet would like a wider discussion on 20 mile an hour outside of schools, then I think we can definitely take that away and perhaps provide a bit of a briefing around some of those options and what's needed then, if that's okay. But specifically around Newark Hill, if there was obviously a desire to put that in as part of the mitigation, then that's something that we would be able to action.
Does that answer your question? Would you like a follow-up?
Thank you, Leader. Yes. Can I just ask that has your team linked in with Carrie Trail and her team regarding schools and school education around crossing patrols, how to cross safely? Because that is something that all children need to know how to cross the road safely as part of independence travel training. But I think there's a real opportunity here for these 5 schools in particular and other schools across the city where we can enhance the education that children are given so that they can be as independently able to travel as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. Not much to discuss. I just wanted to make a note, Leader, that my daughter is interim principal at Newark Hill Primary School, so I will be refraining from discussing.
Thank you for that transparency. Councillor Christian Hogg, I understand you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Can I be assured that the schools involved with this withdrawal of the service have been approached with regard to setting up their own maybe voluntary scheme? And if so, are we giving them a bit of leeway before kind of cutting the ties and giving them a chance to bring that scheme in?
Councillor Ellis, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, I'll take both of the questions, and I think I'll ask Liz to elaborate on them as well. First of all, about school education, about road safety, about crossing from Councillor Cole. I think that's very important, but he can elaborate on the work which has been done on that. And also on the question about, voluntary patrols, if Lewis can answer that one, what the engagement which was done beforehand.
Sure, thank you. Yep. So regarding road safety education, we actually have a dedicated road safety officer who works in our team, and she kind of goes throughout all schools, makes the offer to all schools really to go in and deliver a variety of road safety education, including crossing the roads, etc. And as part of this process, we have reached out a number of times to those schools as well to offer enhanced services around those, which I believe some of the schools, if not all of them, have taken up that offer, which is good. Obviously, that's linking as well at times with the police as well to do joint initiatives. We also run Bikeability, which is like the school cycle proficiency training. So again, that's offered to all schools as well to try and obviously make sure that pupils are confident and can cycle safely. With regarding to Councillor Hogg's question around the voluntary element for it, we have reached out to the schools to obviously explain what the proposals were. We didn't explicitly ask them about whether they would be able to take it on a voluntary basis. I would have to check, but my understanding is that any patroller would need to be employed, even if it is on a voluntary basis, by the City Council, because the role of a school crossing patroller is obviously governed in certain legislation, and I believe it's only a local authority that can actually do that. But like I say, we haven't, but throughout the consultation and conversations that we have had with the schools, we haven't had any offers come through around or any expressions of interest about anyone that would be willing to take it up on a voluntary basis.
Yes, Councillor Hogg.
So just on that, I know that with the school street scheme, that is perfectly acceptable to have the volunteers run those sort of schemes. Is this something that we could possibly look into and see if there's a fudge or some way round? It may be that they're not called school crossing patrol, but that you basically have volunteers coming, being able to help with crossing the road. It just seems to me a missed opportunity. It's something that we're very keen to do, is to get more volunteers. Anything that can make the children's journey to school safer has got to be something that we should be looking into. So I think it would be really good if we could actively, if we get Rebecca, it's Rebecca that deals with that side of things, if we get Rebecca to maybe actively go and have that conversation with these schools specifically, but also maybe wider schools as well, about how that could be a new scheme that we could bring forward.
So, Councillor Ellis, I think that you wanted to make a contribution on this, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it's something we can look into, but we do have to be mindful of legislation, we have to be mindful of safeguarding, etc., but we'll look into it.
Thank you. Any other questions at all? Yes, Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. Lewis, and with your team, especially around the Eastfield Road area, has had an awful lot of accidents recently, especially where drivers are behaving in a way that is not appropriate to be on the road. Does your team work closely with the police to try and support prosecutions where people are causing injury due to unsafe driving in those areas around the schools? That's what I wanted to just ask about. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. That's one of the areas. There's quite a few numbers of roads and streets across Peterborough which are getting up lights of a number of road accidents. And road safety is something which I'm going to be pushing and looking at a big focus on in the next month. And that obviously includes schools, nurseries, etc., preschools. So it is something we will work on and be looking at specifically road safety. And I came to Eastfield Road with you. And with Lewis, and as well as other sites we've visited. So this is definitely be a focus, not just around school areas, but areas which have a problem as well, general problem.
Thank you. Now, if there are no further questions, I think this has been a really good opportunity to have a look at some of the really relevant points raised around road safety. And actually, Lewis, I'd really like to compliment the team on the fact that they've taken into consideration the educational aspects of this around road safety. I think that forms quite a significant part, and people have made their concerns known. I know that you've come out to sites as well with councillors on this issue. I know that it still remains quite a relevant part of many councillors across the board in the council in terms of road safety, especially at school drop-off and pick-up times. But I think that this demonstrates a really good, robust conversation around those issues, and I'm really grateful for everybody's conversations, which leads me on to the recommendation. So, colleagues, we are being recommended to review the information in this report and uphold the original decision made by the Council as part of the 2024-25 budget, and do not reinstate the school crossing patrol service, and instead implement additional mitigation measures. Are we content, colleagues, to agree that recommendation, please? Councillor Hogg.
Can we just add on to that, this piece of work in terms of going forward with engaging with schools and making sure that we've covered our bases, is the point?
I think that has already been stipulated as being taken away for you.
But should it not be part of that recommendation, is the pause, rather than just a conversation?
It's been noted already, so
Okay.
it doesn't need to be part of the recommendation, but thank you for highlighting that. Thank you. It's appreciated because they've been all relevant points. So I really do want to put that on record that it's been appreciated that you've highlighted that. So just a show of hands, do we agree that recommendation? Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item number 6, which is integrated community equipment support across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. This item can be found on pages 25 to 36 of the agenda. Now, as Councillor Neil Boyce, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, has given his apologies for this meeting, I will introduce this on his behalf. So, the Integrated Community Equipment Service provides equipment to people to enable them to live safely in their homes, to be discharged from hospital, access education in the community, and to support people at the end of their lives. Peterborough City Council are the lead commissioner for Cambridgeshire County Council and the Integrated Care Board, which is otherwise known as the ICB. Now, NRS were the supplier of this service, but declared insolvency on the 1st of August. This paper provides an overview of the actions and governance that commissioners undertook to ensure that the council could continue to provide this statutory service to its residents. Now, that is the introduction to this report. What I'd like to ask is, any of you have any questions or would like to raise any comments at all in the way of debate? Councillor Ray Bisbee.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the team on picking up on this at a very early stage, and actually the work they did to get the new contract, because it was done within a week, which is absolutely brilliant timing. The questions I have is, first of all, have we got some break clauses? How assured are we that the services are going to continue without loss in required standards? Because the company that we have now is one of only 2 companies within the whole of the UK. So we need to make sure that the standard is there and that it doesn't go the same way as the Nottingham Rehab Limited went. So how sure are we of that? And if I may just add one more thing, were there any gaps within the service while transferring from one service to the other? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bisbee. First of all, they're really relevant questions. I happened to be the Cabinet Member at the time. And first of all, I'd like to put on record some of our officers, including Lisa Murray, who worked around the clock with our officers and our Democratic Services team. We had Charlotte at the time, who made sure that we were watertight in terms of governance, whilst at the same time ensuring that no resident went without provision in terms of services. And we really should applaud our Adult Social Care team, Democratic Services in looking for the governance of this, a legal governance team, and also Lisa Murray, who was part of the commissioning team over this. So I'd like to place our thanks on record as a Cabinet to our officers in particular. What I would like to say is that this was brought to my attention at the time. It was LGA conference for local government, and the executive decision was made to actually take on board Mediquip, which is the alternative provider, and we looked at the governance around that. And whilst we were very proactive and worked actually quite ahead of other boroughs within the country, there were 40 other, I think, London boroughs that had been left without that provision due to the NRS insolvency. So as a result of our expedient steps, we were able to ensure that no resident within our city was left without provision. So in terms of giving you that reassurance in answer to your question, that didn't happen, that anybody was left without any equipment. In terms of the governance around break clause, I do believe that a break clause has been put in place. However, I will hand it over to the Executive Director for Adults and Health to elaborate on that point further.
there are basically the standard break clauses within the contract. We've gone for a full 4-year contract with the provider, who actually wanted it to be for longer, but we felt that the full 4 years was the best value. They need the assurance to be able to build the supply chains and just to be able to build the market to provide the kind of the secure provision that they have. So in negotiation, we felt that the 4 years was the right term to be able to work with. But we do have the standard break clauses within the contract, should they be required.
Thank you very much for that, Steve. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Leader. It's just to follow on from Councillor Bisbee's question, really. My mum was discharged from hospital back in July, and when all of this was taking place, and there has been absolutely no break in the level of support that she's got with medical equipment. And I know we're talking about break clauses and we're talking about cost, but actually we really need to think about the people that use these services and how it means that people can live in their own homes the way they wish to, and most importantly, be in their homes when they pass away. And for me, this has been really personal. So I would just like to thank everyone that has enabled this transition to take place so smoothly. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. So are there any other questions or points that anybody would like to raise at all? I think that's been a really positive contribution. This is actually a really positive story for our city in terms of the fact that we take really seriously the most vulnerable and frail in our society, and much of the equipment that had been provided, I'd like to highlight, obviously was offered to people of all ages. We look after people of all ages. Some of that is ventilatory support, so literally life supporting equipment. So to understand the importance of this equipment and its provision and how we prevented anybody from going without is something that I would really like us to use as a success story for our cabinet and our council, and especially our team working in adult social care. So thank you very much to Steve and your team. Councillor Bisbee, you wanted to say something?
Actually, you've just mentioned it. I think the work that was done to make sure that this got over the line and nobody did suffer a loss of services, I think we should actually mention all the team, because Lisa and everybody else did such a brilliant job, and maybe they should go forward for one of the teams of the year.
Thank you very much for your contribution. So on that note, we're being recommended to support the emergency decision taken on the 21st of July 2025 under the Constitution at Part 4, Standing Orders, Section 4, General Standing Orders, Section 6.1, in which the Chief Executive, in consultation with the leader and chairman of the relevant scrutiny committees for the prevention, independence and resilience, took the decisions to, number one, authorise the council to exercise its right to terminate the contract between Peterborough City Council and Nottingham Rehab Limited for provision of integrated community equipment services across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire with immediate effect as a result of contractual termination event being triggered. Number two, authorise the council as lead commissioner on behalf of CCC and the ICB to direct award a new contract for the integrated community equipment service across Peterborough and Cambridgeshire to an alternative provider, which is known as Mediquip Assistive Technology Limited, to ensure continuity of this statutory service at a maximum annual value of £8,758,947 per annum and a total value of up to £35,035,788 over a 4-year contract period. This value excludes annual fee rate changes, which will be agreed through the annual fee rate change business plan investment case approval and internal governance. The new contract may commence upon this report becoming effective. Number three, authorise a variation to the delegation agreement that operates between PCC and CCC, which underpins PCC's responsibility as lead authority of this service to reflect any variation to the contractual and financial position of new arrangements as a result of PCC exercising the right to terminate the existing contract with Nottingham Rehab Limited and enter into a new contract with Mediquip Assistive Technology Limited. These changes shall take effect from the date of this report. Number 4, authorise a variation to the Section 75 partnering agreement that operates between PCC, CCC and the ICB in relation to Peterborough and Cambridgeshire's Integrated Community Equipment Service to reflect necessary changes to the contractual financial position of any new arrangements PCC shall enter into. These changes shall take effect from the date of this report. Acknowledge that both CCC and the ICB, for whom PCC commissions the Integrated Community Equipment Service on behalf of, have taken equivalent urgent decisions and agreed through their respective governance structures to support the simultaneous termination and direct award contract of PCC as the lead authority. Now, I am going to say something here. I know there's been a lot of abbreviations, but that's just to avoid me speaking a mouthful. So CCC meaning Cambridgeshire County Council, PCC, Peterborough City Council, and ICB meaning the Integrated Care Board, just so that we make sure that we all know what we're talking about here. And just to say that the Chief Executive and Head of the Prevention, Independence and Resilience Scrutiny Committee had agreed to these changes back then on July the 21st. This is now being brought to Cabinet to approve. So, members, may I ask that you are content to agree this recommendation? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we will be moving on to agenda item number 7, which is Q1 2025 to 2026 corporate performance. This item can be found on pages 37 to 54 of the agenda. Now, I think it's it's Councillor actually, is it me? Yes, it is me, actually. Yes, it will be Councillor Jamil having the floor shortly, I believe. So I will be introducing this item. It's a pleasure to introduce this item. And the officers presiding over this item are Christine Marshall, Mandy Pullen and Rena Mistry. So I'm pleased to present the Q1 Corporate Performance Update for 2025-26, reflecting our progress from April to June 2025 against the priorities set out in our corporate strategy, creating a city of opportunity. This report demonstrates that despite ongoing challenges, our council continues to make significant strides. I'm encouraged to note that over half of our key performance indicators have shown improvement, with notable successes in our priority areas of prevention, independence and resilience, and economy and inclusive growth, supporting our residents, independence and resilience. For example, we have an increased percentage of people with a learning disability now in paid employment, which has been an improvement over the last couple of years, improved early support for new families and reduced the number of households placed in temporary accommodations. However, we must also acknowledge areas where further effort is required. So, persistent school absence, long-term empty homes and rising violent offences in the city centre remain as concerns. The timeliness of education, health and care plans also needs improvement. But our commitment to financial sustainability, modernising services and supporting vulnerable children and young people remains at the heart of our work. We will continue to focus on these priorities, ensuring that every resident has the opportunity to thrive in our city of Peterborough. That was the introduction. Does anybody wish to raise points around the good things that have taken place and what we should highlight, or any questions at all? I would welcome your contributions. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. Looking at the environment part of the corporate report, I just want to flag up that the 12-month rolling total and the first quarter of 25-26 flight tipping incidents are lower than they were this time last year, with a 16% reduction in flight tipping collected, and also the household waste recycling centre volumes have reduced there because of the introduction of the successful introduction of the permit scheme. But not only that, the active travel expenditure remains high. We've, for example, recently we've we've opened the new Thorpewood Cycleway, which I tried out on my bike. I got my bike out especially to try it out. And with the help of the Cabinet Working Group and obviously funded via the Combined Authority, there are other plans and schemes in the offing in coming months. So I'm pleased to see these improvements. Obviously, there is still quite a lot of work to do around fly tipping and litter, which we are actively working with our partners. For example, we've got a what we call a debris workshop with some of our partners and volunteers coming up next week, where we'll be discussing things coming forward. So the work is ongoing, and I welcome any ideas. There's a task and finish group where members can put, an all-party task and finish group via the scrutiny committee, where members can put forward ideas to as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis, for that useful information and the fact that fly tipping rates have decreased across the city. I think that that's one of the main casework areas for many councillors across the city as well. Are there any other contributions? Yes, Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for this report. And of course, there's a lot to celebrate on this report. But equally, you mentioned the areas of concern, and particularly rising violence in city centre remains a concern. I want to highlight that we are grateful to our local MP for securing £1.5 million for regeneration of city centre, and we would be spending that money to ensure that the rising violence is decreased and more footfall is increased on that. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
I think that's a really promising turn of events. Is there anybody else that would like to make a contribution? Well, I'd like to make a contribution. I went to Labour conference this week. Actually, I've just come back all conferenced out, still, being very tired. But what I want to highlight is yesterday at the Staff Awards that there was an exhibition by our technology partners called DATNEXA, which actually worked with our adult social care team on forming the chatbot, which is otherwise known as Hey Geraldine, named after one of our own occupational therapists who's worked with us for 38 years. And that is exactly one of the areas that should be celebrated with reference to efficiency and digitalisation and modernisation in our services, where somebody is discharged from hospital, comes home, somebody goes out to assess them, either a social worker or an occupational therapist, then comes back to use the Hey Geraldine chatbot to see how, and in a timely manner, what equipment is needed to make that person feel more well for longer and independent in their home, so that it prevents them from being readmitted back into hospital. And if you have a look at it as a fly on the wall, it actually helps with our NHS, our hospital, GPs and adult social care intervention, and that has been transformative. And I would just like to highlight here that not only has that decreased hospital admissions and helped with making people weller for longer, but it's an ideal example of our prevention independence and resilience strategy, and actually it should be praised for the work that all of you have put in, and particularly DATNEXA, and I think that they're doing some work on frailty across the city as well. So I just want to put that forward, that has been wonderful. And there are other authorities in the country who are seeking training from us in order to implement that in their service as well. So I really would like to take that opportunity. And I know I'm coming across as being a bit biased towards adults and health, but they're doing some great stuff. So I think it really does need to be in terms of the budget pressures. So well done. Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Thank you very much, Leader. I just wanted to highlight the successes of the House project and the outcomes that our updated care leavers offer is having for our youngsters that are leaving children's services. The team, led by John, are continuing to strive to ensure that every child what is offered to every child is what I would want to offer to my own children. We are all corporate parents here in this room, and we have a responsibility to all the children in this city. And it doesn't quite fit into this quarter performance, but I want to celebrate it anyway, that 4 of the youngsters in the first cohort from the House project have actually signed and are now in their own homes. And there are still some challenges regarding tenancy and ages, which John and the team are working tirelessly to solve. But that is a huge huge success story. I couldn't be prouder that we've done this for these four youngsters, with a second cohort now starting. It's just onwards and upwards, and I'm hoping that in the next Ofsted update, which is coming at the end of October, that we will continue to see that children's services here in Peterborough goes from strength to strength. So I just wanted to raise that here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Con. Really proud of your contributions. And like I said, when first being elected, that I trust our city's children under your leadership. And also, John, Greg, I'd like to also pay tribute to you and your team as well, and actually set the tone about the fact that we are going to be a cabinet that will always bat for the children of our city, and we will see that hopefully going forward too. So thank you very much for that contribution. Now, if we have no other contributions or questions, I would like us to move to the recommendation. So colleagues, we are being recommended to note the corporate performance report for Q1 2025 to 26. Are we content to agree that recommendation, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. So we will move on to agenda item number 8, which is our budget control report. Now, Q1. This item can be found on pages 55 to 86 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Can you please introduce this report?
Thank you, Leader. Of course, I can. I'm presenting the Q1 Budget Control Report for 2025-26. As of 30th of June, we are forecasting a £5.2 million overspend on the revenue budget, mainly due to delays in delivering savings, higher capital financing costs, and the pressures in children's placements and agency staff. This position, if not addressed, would require us to draw on the general fund, reducing its balance to below £2 million by the year end. This would leave our reserves in a fragile state, with total earmarked and general fund balances projected to fall to 18.3 million. The dedicated schools grant is also forecast to overspend by £9.7 million, adding to our financial challenges. This is a significant national issue with statutory override in place until March 2028, but it remains a key risk for our council. In response to these challenges, we are taking decisive action, which includes rebuilding and resettling the council's financial health through a thorough review of reserves and commitments, implementing a flexible use capital receipts policy, which will allow us to fund eligible transformation costs from asset sales, thereby improving our reserves position by up to £3 million. We're also looking at realigning the capital programme to reduce our borrowing costs and maintaining strict spending limits and recruitment controls, and we have targeted actions to address the savings at risk. While the financial position remains challenging, the actions set out in this report demonstrate our commitment to robust financial management and to rebuilding the council's financial resilience. I recommend that Cabinet considers the financial forecast for 25-26 and approves the flexible use of capital receipts policy, the amendments to the capital programme, and the use of reserves as set out in the appendices. Thank you, and I would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Now, a very important item, so I would welcome questions and contributions from Cabinet. Councillor Zamir Ali.
Just a quick one. How does this compare to last year in the same quarter?
I know it seems that every year is different, but at this stage last year we had an overspend of just over £11 million. But that's not to say that we're taking this any lighter. For us, that figure could have been 11 million, and we would still be working just as hard as we are now. It's 5.2. I'm confident that we will have a balanced budget by the time we come to budget setting in February.
Councillor Zamir Ali, you have a follow-up?
It's just more of a comment. So we are doing better than we were the year before in regards to the level of overspend in comparison.
yes and no. The challenges are different every year. So in some respects, although we can make comparisons, the challenges this year are very different to last year, although they're very similar as well in some nature. But we are making sure this is the position we're in. We know where we want to be in February, and we're doing everything we can, as set out in the paper, to make sure that we get to a position where we can have a budget that we can recommend to the whole of council.
You have a follow-up, Councillor Zamir?
How confident are you in regards to getting to the end of the year with... it's the actual question. It's how confident are you in regards to getting to the end of the year and getting a balanced budget as well, so we don't have to delve into any of our reserves?
I think the proposals that we're making in front of you today are such that we're hoping by the time we get to, we could be in a position where the risks are such that a child comes along and then we're having to, children's services doing adult social care. There are some known unknowns that we can't, but I'm confident that we take these risks, and if everything remains the same, that we will have a balanced budget.
Thank you, Councillor Zamir. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a bit of a difficult question here. This report's recommending the flexible use of capital receipts policy. Now, the critics out there would say that what you're trying to really do here is that trying to sell assets to run your day-to-day costs. Can you give us assurance that it's not the case, and this policy, if this policy is unique to this council, or is it common to other areas as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. The flexible use of capital receipts policy has been around for years. Other councils have used it as a lever, as part of their budget setting, to make sure that they have sufficient money. I think by us agreeing this, it gives our Section 151 officer and our team that flexibility to be using sales of capital receipts in a way that would then benefit things like reserves, or if we want to use it for any other purpose. And this is, and I want to reassure everyone, it's existing. Capital release. We're not going to have a fire sale. That's not what the intention of this policy is, and it's something that other councils have been using for years, and to some extent I'm surprised we've never done it before as well.
I actually appreciate that question, Councillor Farouk. I think it's a really important one to ensure our transparency as well. So thank you very much. I'd like to actually bring in the Chief Executive, Matthew Gladstone, on this. Matt Gladstone.
Sounds very formal, doesn't it? Just to pick up on the comment around the policy, you recall cross-party through the FSWG group that this was a matter which was pushed continually by the Independent Assurance Improvement Panel as well, and it is commonplace. And they were saying it's a tool that you can use to help smooth some of the pressures that you've got. The pressures in children's, adults, homelessness are some of the acute issues that lots of upper tier councils are facing at the moment. We have invested heavily in children's and adults predominantly, but the challenge is, the £5 million still remains. We're working hard as a team, but the panel was, and the chair was very clear. You need to have a policy, as and when you need to use it, that ability and flexibility is there to shift that, and I think that's really important for consideration at full council.
Thank you very much for that contribution. You'd like a follow-up?
Thank you. Yeah, follow up a little bit different element to this. I wanted to go on to the capital spend, and of course you're doing absolutely right thing, which is having less capital projects with high interest rates, and most of our capital spend, it looks as though now, is grant, but we're still paying our interest and our debt every year, which is made of MRP and interest rate. So does that mean that the debt loan is declining in the long term, in the long term per year, as we're not taking more borrowing as we're going along?
I'm bringing Emma on this one and to give you a technical answer to that question.
Emma, thank you.
So obviously within the budget we do put aside money, which we call MRP, which is essentially the repayment part of our debt. So every year we are paying down an element of our debt. So the changes that we're putting in our capital programme this year to reduce it in size means that we should hopefully have a net reduction in the size of our borrowing by the end of the year. obviously once that goes through, it will depend on what the outturn position is at the end of the year, but it should be a reduced position. If I may, if I can just come back on the flexible use capital receipts as well. It was just to say, you mentioned about it being used for business as usual expenditure, and it was just to point out that it is a highly legislated area, so we can't use it for business as usual expenditure. The policy sets out what we will be using it for, and it has to be invested where we see that it's going to transform services and deliver future economic benefits for the council. So we will be ensuring that spend is in line with that policy at the end of the year.
I think that's a useful bit of information that you've provided to us, Emma. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to ask about LGR and any potential financial impact that could have on our budget forecasting, our reserves. It's something that leaders and CLT within the council talk about a lot. I think it's something the public need to be aware of, that it is coming around the corner. And what are we doing to ensure that our reserves are not impacted in a negative way, and we can't afford to do it.
Thank you, Councillor Cole.
I'll start with this one and then I'll bring Emma in. I think everyone should not be under any illusions. LGR is going to cost. I mean, there's no two ways about that. And a challenge for us as an administration is to make sure Peterborough City Council is as financially healthy going into that position, as I'm sure the other councils will do as well. There will be costs, which we've been told, and we are making sure that our budget is one of those ones that's balancing every year till then, and also that we're building up our reserves to make sure that we do not have any nasty surprises by the time we get there. But the other councils that are in a similar position. In terms of council tax, it's something that we're going to have to look at. FSWG will look at us to see where we can do, because we, as in Peterborough, do have a council tax which is lower than some of our neighbouring authorities that we may end up partnering up with. But it is something we are aware of, something that we're actively looking at, and make sure that by the time we get to that stage, we are financially healthy and in the best position that we can make sure that Peterborough Council can be in. Emma, do you want to add anything to that?
I think you've covered it really well, to be honest. The flexible use capital receipts policy we're putting in place to try and protect our reserves balances, because they have been reducing quite significantly. We know that LGR is going to cost us. We don't have commitments factored into those reserves yet, because collectively with the other councils in Cambridgeshire, we need to understand what those costs are going to be and how everyone can contribute and what the best funding mechanisms are for LGR. But we're mindful that it is going to cost. And by protecting our reserves, we're making sure, as Councillor Jamil said, that we are in the best financial position with that coming down the track.
Does that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you, Leader. It's just a comment, really. We're in the seats at the moment, making the decisions, but this is a responsibility for all councillors in this council, and those that are on committees, subcommittees, scrutiny committees, that it's not something that's happening to them. It's about having that active conversation. So I'm fully prepared to take my part, and I hope all our councillors do so.
Very wise ask. Thank you very much. Are there any other contributions at all that anybody would like to make? None? It's been a useful conversation, actually, around something that, we're obviously not alone in facing the budgetary pressures towards the end of the year. But what I'm pleased to see are that some safe decisions are being made around the budget, and that we will work together and with our partners in opposition as well to ensure that we deliver the best possible services that we can for our city within those constraints, and also make some sensible decisions around that. So to acknowledge that it's actually a collaborative effort, because each one of us has that duty and responsibility to our city, and obviously setting about a balanced budget is a legal obligation upon us too. So just to note that, and I really thank you for the work of the officers and the contributions that you've all made in this report, which moves me on to the recommendations. So we have 4 recommendations here. Is to consider the financial forecast for 2025-26 as at Q1. Number 2, recommend to Council for approval the flexible use of capital receipts policy as set out in Appendix D and delegation to the Executive Director of Corporate Services, Section 151, to take the necessary steps to implement the policy. Number 3, recommend to Council for approval the amendments to the capital programme as set out in Appendix E. And number 4, approve the use of reserves as set out in Appendix F. Now, Cabinet, are we content to agree that recommendation? Looking around the room, agreed? Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item number 9, which is our medium-term financial strategy 2026-2029 quarter 1 update and fair funding consultation. This item can be found on pages 87 to 126 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Leader, Cabinet members and colleagues, I'm pleased to introduce the MTFS Strategy 26 to 29 Quarter 1 update and the Fair Funding Consultation report, which sets out our revised financial assumptions for the period 2026 to 2029. These reflect the latest funding projections, as well as the risks and opportunities facing our Council. Our updated MTFS demonstrates that while we continue to face a challenging environment, there are positive developments on the horizon. The government's proposed fair funding review introduces a new funding formula that better reflects local demand, deprivation, and the ability to raise income through council tax. If implemented, as indicated, this could give a significant positive impact on our financial position, which funding projected to increase by approximately 25 million by 28-29. However, these figures remain estimates until the government confirms allocations later this year. You will note that we submitted a response to the recent consultation, and this is set out in Appendix B. In light of the immediate financial challenges and the positive trajectory in years to come, we are proposing to adopt the following three-pronged approach in order to secure a sustainable financial future. First point, reset. We are improving the robustness of our budget assumptions and plans and ensuring that we have a clear understanding of the challenges ahead. 2, rebuild. We are focused on replenishing our reserves to provide greater resilience against our future shocks. And thirdly, redesign. We are driving long-term sustainable service solutions with focus on prevention, early intervention, and the delivering of value for money. Directorates have been holding dedicated budget workshops to develop robust proposals, whilst work is ongoing to finalise demand projections and develop our capital programme for 2026 and beyond. These proposals are being refined and will be brought forward as part of the ongoing budget process. In summary, while the Council continues to face significant financial pressures, we are taking proactive steps to strengthen our financial position and ensure that we can deliver for the people of Peterborough. The MTFS update and our response to the fair funding consultation reflect our commitment to prudent financial management, resilience and innovation. Thank you, and I would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Jamil, for that comprehensive update. We'll now move to commenting and questions or debate, if you want to call it, by anybody who is present here at all. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Okay, I'll start. I've got a couple of questions. I'll start with the first one, and then I'll give a break and take the other one. Yeah, thank you for that comprehensive report, Councillor Jamil. Fair funding. Since I've joined the council, we were always looking for fair funding. It was going to come, it was round the corner, and never came. Peterborough always qualifies for that higher funding. We got high level of deprivation. We also one of the highest growth cities, which requires that extra funding to match the infrastructure which needs to go with it. And you know what? You can only transform so much in so many departments. Of course, you can now introduce AI and other things, which perhaps will make some savings. So, how confident are you that fair funding is going to come in? and how we now included that in our forecast to deliver a balanced budget.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. I think it was one of the cornerstones of the Labour government when they came into power that they were going to give us some financial stability in terms of the amount of funding that we will receive. Now, fairer funding, if it works, it's putting us back onto a level playing field with other like authorities similar to where, similar to us. The idea is all these years, we've complained. I remember back in, for those who were around 2016, we had a fair deal for Peterborough. We were trying to get money out of the previous government, or we weren't actually getting more. We were asking for a parity with other similar councils. If this fairer funding is announced in the way we think it's going to be announced in December, or we're hoping that it's going to be announced in December, it will just start to give us parity. But, make no mistake, this is not the end of our financial situation. It's going to take years for us to get to a level playing field with other similar authorities who like ourselves, probably either had too much money or not enough money. So there's going to be winners and losers with fairer funding. Fortunately for us, if it is like the consultation shows, we will be one of the ones, and therefore probably years 2 and 3 is when we may start seeing some changes. But initially, I think it will be us to getting to a level playing field, and that's the important thing for us. And I thank the Labour government for actually looking at it. And I'd like to comment that Jim McMahon is someone who spent years in local government and understands local government. It's always brilliant to have someone who's worked in local, understands it, and is making those decisions at the top.
Thank you very much. Now, I do have a contribution and a question here from Councillor Howard. I would like to state, obviously, for public record, that it is at the leader's discretion to allow other councillors to come, and I welcome Councillor Howard today to the debate and the opportunity to ask questions as well. So I will grant you the opportunity to ask your question now, please, Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Leader, and appreciate you hosting me as well, so thank you for that. One's an observation and one's a question. On the 29th of January, we've got the most important scrutiny of the year. And with some of the changes that have been made, we could have a very new chair in that meeting. And my observation to you is just to ensure that they have enough training and support to make sure that they can effectively chair what is always a very tough and dynamic meeting. So just to put that across as something to consider. And secondly to that, the next important date is the 19th of February, where we all come together to vote for the budget. Now, obviously, I don't think any of our heart rates can take what happened this year. So I ask you, Councillor Jamil, through the Coalition of Common Purpose, have you got enough constructive discussion and collaboration in the new setup to carry through the budget, do you feel? Thank you.
On the first comment that you made, I totally agree with you. It's probably the most important scrutiny meeting that any council has, and I think I would encourage every councillor to be present at that meeting, because we want to avoid a situation where people then say, we weren't told, we weren't advised, and it's important that whoever chairs that gets the right amount of training to be able to do it. So it will come from over our scrutiny chairs anyway. As per our constitution. So in that sense, I totally agree with your comment. With regards to your second point, FSWG, which, and I always give credit to Councillor Fitzgerald for the way that he set it up, the way it's been running collegiately. It's, 2 years ago, it was in one of the situations where we all voted for it. Last year, there were problems, but I'm hoping with the setup that we got at the moment, and the invitation to your group to come back. I know that they're thinking about whether they want to take part or not. I think the more people that we can get involved in the process, getting to the FSWG and then getting to that meeting in January, the more people that can contribute, the better and shape the budget can be. So I would encourage everyone to get involved, all parties and independents, to get involved and share in this budget, because at the end of the day, the administration might be us and the administration at the moment, but it's our budget. It's a Peterborough City Council budget, and it's for all of us. Just like Councillor Cole was saying, talking about corporate parents, this affects the whole city. So it's important everyone gets involved.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howard. And just to reiterate the point around, the doors are open and we would welcome your contributions on FSWG. I think the time has now passed where I think that we can reset the dial on the fact that we've welcomed your contributions here, and we would wholeheartedly welcome your contributions on FSWG. So I'd like to put on record that our doors are open to you as a coalition of common purpose, and each one of us here around the table would welcome your contributions on FSWG. So please do reconsider coming back to the table and working collaboratively with us. Thank you. We now have Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. Just before Labour conference, I was delighted to see that Peterborough had received, or is going to receive, a £40 million pot over the next 10 years for areas across Peterborough that have been overlooked, neglected, or who have a high level of deprivation. I'm cock-a-hoop about the fact that Welland, which I am ward councillor for, is going to share part of that. But Orton, parts of the Ortons, Gunthorpe, Paston and Welland are going to receive this money. Councillor Jamil, you've just mentioned that this is our financial strategy going forward. Some of our residents, some of the naysayers out there may be worried that this £40 million pot of money is going to seep into the MTFS going forward. Can you assure residents out there that that's not the case, and that this is additional funding that the government, this Labour government, is giving Peterborough to champion these areas that need that additional support? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Firstly, as a resident of Peterborough, I welcome any investment by the government into our city. And I know there are some council out there who are disappointed that their wards didn't get it, but £40 million, wow. You know, if you think of the amount of money and that money, how it can change those two areas, kind of hoping that this will be the catalyst for more money to come in. But that money is ring-fenced for those areas. And I have no intention of diverting that money into this budget or anywhere else. It's going to be, as it says on the tin, it's going to be spent in those areas. I can give that assurance.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. And just to build on that question, it's a hugely positive news. You know, it's 40 million. We welcome that. And as Leader spoken earlier, you know, we are there to protect the vulnerable. And with the Leader's background of doctor and everything, I think this is well needed. But my question is, are we in the process of forming those community groups to deliver that much needed improvement in those areas and leave that lasting improvement? What I don't want is, as Katie says, the money coming into the council funds and then either handed over to some of the existing voluntary groups. Because forming those community groups is absolutely crucial, not just to make sure that this 40 million is spent well in those areas, and those are the people who know it where they should be spent, but having community groups in those areas in the long term, well after this 40 million is spent, ensures that there is no graffiti and that everybody's lives are improved, and those community groups carry everybody within those small areas. Thanks.
I'll try and answer it. It's at the very early stage. We've been told we're getting the money. The way it's going to work, it's always better when it's bottom up. So the community groups telling us where they think the money should be spent and how it should be spent. So at the moment, all I can say is watch this detail, and then more information will come up when we've got more of an idea of, you know, what we're going to do. But at the moment, it's at the infancy stage, and how it's going to be. All I can assure you is that money will be spent in those areas.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farouk. I'd just like to add a little bit that money that we have spoken about that has been invested by the government is going into our most deprived area according to data that has been collated by the government within our city. And it's really noteworthy that whilst that investment is going to be made into those areas, that people across the city will benefit. So there are numerous organisations that work within those areas that have people contribute from all all ends of the city. And I think that the council is already working towards setting up something with great governance on board. And we have got Stephen Taylor, who's our executive director for adult services, who hopefully will be overseeing that process. And we've got a reliable and safe pair of hands that will be looking into the governance around it and ensuring that it is spent in those areas to which it has been allocated in an equitable fashion. So, in terms of safe hands, we've got somebody who has that expertise behind them. So I'm very encouraging of that decision and look forward to seeing the benefit that our communities reap as a result of this very valuable funding. So thank you very much for that. Are there any more contributions at all that anybody would like to make? Councillor Hogg.
I just wanted to make the point that we need to make sure that this is done at some sort of pace. I mean, I know that previously, the previous administration, there was money that went into Millfield, for instance, that kind of just sat there for a very long time and wasn't spent. And we need to absolutely make sure that we don't fall into the trap of kind of spending all the time planning and not actually any doing. So I do think that's something that we absolutely to make sure that doesn't happen. A new administration, new way of doing things.
Councillor Jamil.
Yeah, I certainly echo that. And this administration came in May. Work started in Millfield within a year. So we have a track record, and I'm kind of hoping to build on that track record with the £40 million going into the areas and making sure it's done in a timely manner, doesn't drag on, and there's no problems when we projects start.
I think I'd like to back that up as using that route sometimes and being frustrated that I have to take the diversion. Certainly the visuals are there of the work that's taking place. So yes, I certainly endorse that, and hopefully going forward. Steve.
It's just worth saying that in terms of timescales, we're in wave 2, which means that ultimately the money will come to us in December 26. And I think we get some initial funding around the kind of planning work that comes to us in the spring of 26. I think what we want to do in the interim is really start the listening exercises, the consultation exercise, to really start listening and talking to our community about what will really add value for them. So I think we've got a chance now to really start to mobilise, do that work, develop the kind of co-production mechanisms to be able to develop it in preparation for the first money coming in spring, when we can really start to kind of mobilise the teams to start to develop the firm implementation plans.
That's great to have that actually information, because it sort of demonstrates that we're sort of one step ahead really, so that we're all ready to go and all hands on deck when that funding comes in. So thank you for that information. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to add to the point that Steve made. So as a ward councillor for an area that is going to share some of this money, I've already reached out to Rob Hill as part of the communities team, asking for a community meeting held within the Welland. I know my residents have already spoken to me about Dogsthorpe Community Centre, the Olive Branch and the Charterist Centre on the Welland. As I said to my residents, not my money. They're the ones that live there. They need to have input. So Rob has promised me, and the reason why I'm saying this in an open forum, because then he's has to do it, that the meeting will be before November. So Rob, I set the challenge to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. Anybody else would like to make a contribution at all? I think that's been a really good round of conversation, actually, and welcome contributions from Councillor Howard, of course. So it's been a good all-rounded debate, representative of all areas of our council, which I'm really pleased to see. Yes, there are challenges, and I don't think that we're going to put make it look all dressed up and flowery. I just think that this discussion has been quite transparent, quite open. Some really pertinent questions have been asked, and actually that we are a cabinet that is set up for the challenges ahead, and looking forward, hopefully we should achieve and cross some of those hurdles in a constructive manner. Well, leading on to that then, I would like to ask the recommendations and that members are recommended to note the two recommendations, which are the revised assumptions medium-term Financial Strategy 2025 to 2028 update, and 2, the response to consultation on fair funding review within Appendix B. Now, members, are we content to agree that recommendation? Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item number 10, which is the Fletton Keys Hotel update and next steps. Now, this item can be found on page 127 to 472 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, please may you introduce the report.
Thank you, Leader. I have to say that since I took office a year ago, this topic has occupied my time more than probably anything else. But we're here today to consider the future of the Hilton Hotel site at Fletton Quays. Now, you will all be familiar with the history as set out in the report. In 2017, the Council agreed a loan of up to £15 million to support the development of a 168-room Hilton Hotel. It is well documented that the project faced significant delays, COVID, Brexit, and wider construction sector challenges as a result of international events, with work slowing in May 2023 and then stopped completely later that year. The developer, Fletton Quays Hotel Limited, entered into administration in October 2023. Since we last reported on this in October last year, we have explored the options of moving forward in some detail. Now, including a soft market test where a preferred bidder was identified but unfortunately withdrew at the last minute earlier this year. We commissioned at the time, as a result of that, independent advice and a feasibility study via Wilmot Dixon and a business case modelling from a company called 3110. It's fair to say that we do not have the specialist expertise to manage the delivery of such a complex project. And to complete the hotel would require substantial additional borrowing and expose the council to a high financial risk, including some income volatility. In light of this work, the report recommends instructing the administrators, Teneo, to widely market and sell the site. The goal is to achieve best value for the council and our residents. This difficult decision has not been arrived easily. It's taken a lot of time, a lot of discussion, but we feel it's a necessary one now. We must protect the council's financial position and focus on areas where we can deliver real impact. In addition, there is strong interest in the site, and we are confident a sale can be achieved. I urge the Cabinet to support the recommendation, and we have to remember, we don't own this asset. It's not council asset. And I think out there is an assumption that it's a council asset, and it's not. We just gave the loan to the company to assist with the building of the hotel. So let's move forward decisively and responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thorough and noteworthy introduction, Councillor Jamil. Do we have any questions on this? Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. It seems to me it's a bit like the question of when's the best time to plant a tree is either 10 years ago or today. This is something that we should have, as a council, should have got rid of quite some time ago, but today is the next best option. We absolutely are not in the business of developing properties. I think we can all agree that the majority, certainly if not all, councillors want to see the Hilton Hotel functioning and operating in our city. Are we the best people to deliver that? Absolutely not. What we need to do is we need to go out into the marketplace and get the right people with the right skills to deliver this. And in terms of, at the moment, it just seems to be deteriorating in terms of the value. So we need to absolutely get this gone and more importantly, delivered. Now, this was delivered sometime, this decision, the original decision was made by a Conservative administration a number of years ago. I think we all had kind of reservations, and then there was the loan was extended, questions were asked at council. I asked that myself and was given assurances by the then Cabinet Member for Finance that no, this is, perfectly acceptable thing to do. And so I have got a question. I'm getting to it. The question is to Councillor Jamil, just to make sure that, if something of this kind of ilk comes before us again, it's not the sort of thing that we would be getting into as a council. Can you just give us that reassurance?
Thank you, Councillor Hogg, for your question. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this Labour government have now put in legislation to prevent something like this happening, or you have to go to such a high standard to make the case for it that it's almost difficult. As a council, should we have got involved with it? I'm going to say I was around at the time. It did seem like a good idea at the time. Yeah. However, would I have done it? No. If someone wants to build a hotel, they can use their own money to build their hotel. We should never really have loaned any money to a private company to build something that wasn't a council asset. So if that is sufficient an assurance that if it had been today, I don't think I would be recommended to Cabinet today to say, let's go ahead with this. It's not something we have expertise in. And because of that, it's not a council service that we should be providing. And therefore, I don't think that I would recommend that we ever get involved in such a project again, simply because this has taught everyone a real hard lesson.
I think that was really honest of you, Councillor Jamil, in terms of taking decisive decisions as a cabinet. I think that this is one that definitely we need to highlight. Councillor John Howard, you did again raise your hand. I'd like to welcome you to make a contribution or a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Leader. Councillor Jamil, you have my sympathies, because I know we've both wore this hat at various times over the years, and it's a tricky one to navigate. But obviously, rather than talking about yesterday, it's about today and tomorrow in terms of what we do now. Now, the advice in the past has generally been that the best route financially for us might well be to build out and operate for a period of time of our choosing, without getting into the realms of going into exempt papers, but just as a broad question about that. So my question is, has that advice changed since, as in that is now no longer the best financial route out for the council, or is it a change of direction? If I can ask that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. It's pertinent. If you were sitting here, I would be asking you the same question. Last year when we took over, following a soft market test, we managed to get a preferred bidder. Now, someone was going to come in, put their money in and kit it out and open it. We're grateful. Hilton are still interested and are willing to give their name. So obviously, someone like Hilton knows there is, I'm going to say, money to be made by a hotel at that site. Now, what we've got to do is we've considered that. So we got a bidder who then, at the last minute, pulled out on us. So we've had to go back to the drawing board, see what our options are, and as we're a council, we're not experts in this, we then instructed experts to say, if we carry this out ourselves, but that would have meant we would have had to take out a more higher loan, expose the residents of Peterborough to more debt, and I've got to say, I'm not willing to do that, especially when it's on my watch. I don't want to be, I want us to be financially prudent with what we're doing, and and whether it's going to make money for us or not, probably it may have done, but so many years down the line that it just was not feasible, in my opinion. Hence where we are today, and I'm asking that Cabinet recommends the sale of this site as it is to Torneo, and then they will be selling it as an asset as it is, and then whoever, I'm kind of hoping with someone, a hotel chain, will come along, finish it, and we will have a hotel on that site.
Does that answer your question?
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes, you can.
If that's okay. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jamil, for the answer. It's a very fair answer on where we are. One further question, if I may. In terms of the bidding process, can there be a determined preference for it, for instance, being a high-level hotel provider, or is it once it's in the bidding process, it's down to them? Ultimately, we're looking for the best bid. Is there any direction on that, or is it in their hands at that point?
Ideally, we're looking for the most amount of money come back and for it to stay as a hotel.
Does that answer your question? Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Howard. Now, if there are no other questions around this, and obviously, yes, Councillor Farouk.
Thank you. It's a couple of questions on this. Yes, it's almost 2 years have gone. You know, from October 2023 when it came into administration, then November. I remember the very first thing I said is that we're not in a specialised area of running hotels. Let's sell it on to a developer, and it's taken 2 years, and we're still on a similar path far as a resident out there is concerned. I know inside we know the issues. You know, the hotel was never with us; it was with the administrator. You have to satisfy a number of different time periods, and of course then we had a bid which fell through on the 11th hour, and that took a lot of time. So timescales wise, my first question is, when will we be able to offload this? That's the first part. And the second part is here in this report, we are trying to achieve the best value. Now, the value is what somebody is willing to pay, and that's something is out of our hands. But what is in our hands are two key issues: transparency and ensuring that it goes to as wide a market as possible to attract the most valuable amount of money. So can you ensure that those two things are there in place, please?
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. I would do. You know, as anyone who's sitting in my position, the game here is to get as much money back for the council and to make sure that we do it in an open, transparent manner, so there's no one's left with any doubt as to the way we've done it. Now, Torneo, who will be doing the sale, will, you know, they will also want to get as money back as you know, as the people running the sale. Now, you talked about timescale. I think once we get approval, I've been told 6 to 9 months up to the completion of the sale, and I'm we can hopefully stick to those deadlines. But the name of the game is to get as much money back and, you know, lower that debt burden for our city.
Thank you. You're happy with that response? Now, looking around the room, if there are no other contributions, then does anybody in Cabinet wish to discuss the exempt appendices at all in detail? I think we've all had quite a sort of a open and honest discussion about it. So nobody? That's fine. We will move on to the recommendations, therefore, and thank you for that very constructive discussion and debate and questions, colleagues. So we are being recommended on two fronts. The first is to instruct officers to direct the administrators as the primary creditor to proceed with the marketing and sale of the site and to ensure that any disposal process is conducted so as to achieve best value, having regard to the administrator's statutory duties under the Insolvency Act 1986 and the Council's duty to secure best value under Section 3 of the Local Government Act 1999. And the second ask is to authorise the Executive Director for Place and Economy in consultation with both a Section 151 officer and monitoring officer to execute all documents and enter into any agreements necessary to give effect to Recommendation 1. Cabinet members, are we content to agree to that recommendation? Many thanks, many thanks. Now, before moving on to the next agenda item, we are quite ahead of time, and our colleague, Councillor Katie Collins, unfortunately fractured her ankle while she was away in conference. So may I suggest a comfort break for all of us, and I will take the monitoring officer's advice as to the time length of that.
10 or 15 minutes.
15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, all right for everybody? We will reconvene back here at around 12:15, everybody. The time is now 11:53, so 12:15. Thank you very much. Our next agenda item on the Cabinet agenda, which is item number 10, which happens to be pages 127 to 472 of the agenda, which is the Fletton Keys Hilton Hotel. Oh, we have. Yes, we have. Excuse me. No, I do want to duplicate things, don't I, over here? That's wrong. Apologies, members. So we are now actually on to agenda item number 11, which is the disposal of community centre. This item can be found on pages 421 to 428 of the agenda. It's the Councillor Mohammed Jamil show today, so therefore, Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. And just as important as the Hilton Hotel is the disposal of this council asset. As Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, I present to Cabinet this report regarding the proposed disposal of Walton Community Centre. The Council has undertaken a comprehensive locality review, and as a result of this detailed work, Walton Community Centre has been identified as an underutilised facility within our estate. Recognising our responsibility to ensure that public assets deliver the greatest possible value to both our residents and the wider community, we've explored options that would not only relieve the council of the ongoing maintenance liabilities, but also provide tangible benefits to local people. The recommended sale of this site to the nearby pharmacy represents a unique and timely opportunity for investment in frontline health services. By enabling the pharmacy to expand and diversify the services it offers, we anticipate significant improvements in access to primary health care for residents of Walton and surrounding areas. Importantly, the proposed transaction will generate a best value capital receipt for the council and is structured to be completely efficient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Now we are moving on to the section of contributions in terms of debate, questions and conversation. Councillor Zamir Ali.
Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. Residents are concerned that the PCC are selling community assets. How can this sale of the community centre benefit the community, and can you give me a slight breakdown as well, please?
I think one of the reasons why we've reached this point with this asset, it was underutilised, underused. We feel that if there were community groups that wanted to go in, then could have done, but they've had the opportunity and it wasn't used. I'm going to go over to Felicity in a second to explain what process we've gone by to actually get to this situation, but it's one of those ones that wasn't being used, and we feel that a sale is now appropriate.
With each asset, we do look at all the usage of how the community is utilising the buildings. This one in particular was fairly well underutilised. We did have a group that was running it, but only two main groups were actually utilising it. They have not been adversely affected at all, and one of the groups has gone into the school, Queen Catherine Academy, to use the sports hall, and the other has gone with the community group that was occupying it at one of their other assets that they have from the council.
I have got a seconder. Some of the answer has been provided. Has there been any mitigating groups that have been directly affected, and have you moved them on to other facilities that are either ours or community run?
Yes, therefore, with each review that we take place, we ensure that we mitigate any impact to those users and will identify alternative venues for them.
Thank you.
I think, Councillor Ali, also to remember that this actually was costing us with maintenance costs.
Yep.
So it's something that the council, it's one of those ones that are now deemed to be an unnecessary cost if we sell it. It's now the problem of the people who take it over rather than the council itself.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Zamir Ali. Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to just state that I think this is a great decision that's being made here. We're not just selling a community asset for a vape shop or a betting shop or something of that nature. This is clearly something that, by a pharmacy going in there to expand their provision is of real value to the community. and I think that should be commended, that we've been able to pull that together. I know that the government has been talking for a number of years about increasing what pharmacists can do in terms of the community, in terms of being able to prescribe medicines and what have you. Our NHS's GP surgeries are creaking at the seams. So this puts this pharmacy in a position to be able to expand those services for that community, and I think that will be well received. Thank you.
That's a really useful point. Councillor Jamil, you wanted to make a comment on
I
that?
just wanted to make a comment that normally when we put something on a disposal list and we try and sell it, ward council are the first ones to ring up and say, why are you doing this? But I think the ward council is here quite happy with what we're doing. And it should be welcome that it's not always the case when we sell a community asset. We usually get, groups saying, oh, this is the wrong thing to do. However, we've not had that, and I think it's done with the support of the people of Walton and the ward councillors in this case.
Thank you. I think that's a really important note. And actually, I'd like to place on record, because this is a meeting in which the public are watching, that it is encouraging to see the councillor for Paston and Walton who is here, and also that this is a really good example of cross-party working collaboration. So really appreciate the input that everybody has given. And I'd just like to if there are no other contributions or questions at all, just like to put on record that we've put out our consultation, I think, from the pharmaceutical needs assessment about the public's views on where they would like to see pharmaceutical services. And actually, just outside that, if the councillors worked proactively to ensure that a pharmacy is moving into this building, that actually enhances that process, if anything. And it's a really good example of how we've tried to help the community in the way of meeting their needs, health accessibility needs, and through that pharmacy model as well. So I think a congratulations is due all round to everybody to come together to work to achieve this, and to thank the property team as well, Felicity. Thank you very much for that. So if there are no further points or questions, we will move to the recommendations, please, which are two here, so that the first one is to approve the disposal of Walton Community Centre to the identified purchaser following the receipt of the Red Book valuation commentary confirming best consideration under Section 123 of the Local Government Act 1972. And the second is to delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Economy in conjunction with the Executive Director of Corporate Services and Director of Legal and Governance to finalise the disposal. Therefore, Cabinet, I ask, do you agree to the recommendations? Thank you very much for that. We now move swiftly on, in which we have the Key Theatre Capital Works continuation impact. This item can be found on pages 429 to 442 of the Cabinet agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Surprise, surprise. Please, can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to present this report to Cabinet today, which seeks approval for a business loss payment to Landmark Theatres, our valued operator of the Key Theatre. As many of you are aware, the Key Theatre has been undergoing significant capital works following the discovery of reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete, or RAC as it's better known, within its roof structure. This essential work is critical to ensuring the safety and the future viability of the venue, but it has also brought considerable disruption to the theatre's daily operations. The business loss payment proposed in this report is designed to support Landmark Theatres to mitigate its financial pressures, assist with costs arising from the transition of the pantomime to the new theatre, and help support the ongoing delivery of Landmark Theatre's cultural programme. By approving this payment, we are not only providing practical support to Landmark Theatres in a challenging period, but also demonstrating our commitment to sustaining Peterborough's vibrant arts and cultural landscape. It is essential that we ensure the continuity of much-loved events and maintain high access, high-quality cultural experiences for our residents and visitors as the Key Theatre undergoes these vital improvements. And it also follows on to our commitment to the cultural and leisure facilities in this city, which we do not have enough of. So therefore, those that we do have, we need to support and make sure that there is a future that's viable for them. Thank you.
I am glad that you've ended on that very important note, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Thank you very much. So I'm looking around the table now towards members for their contributions and questions, please. And I can see Councillor Katie Cole would like to make a contribution.
Thank you, Leader. It's a comment, not a question, but I really see that the Key Theatre is one of the jewels in it's one of the many jewels that we have in our crown here in Peterborough, and I think it shows that this council, our cabinet commitment to the culture and arts providers here in the city are supported by PCC, and I think that the building has been here for as long as I've been in Peterborough, which is a very long time, and I can't thank whoever's sorted this out enough to ensure that the theatre productions are mitigated with having to move from one facility to another. Lots of these productions are sort of done on a shoestring, and it's not fair that they are impacted because the building needs further works. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jamil, would you like to add to that?
I certainly echo Councillor Cole's comments, and it's important to remember that this work that we're given additional to, because when we started doing the work, we found that there's more work to do, and it's our investment in our theatre, and to make sure that it has a future that's viable for all of us. It's an important asset on that embankment, you know, an area that we're looking to develop, and I just think that this, once this is up and running, it will be a vibrant theatre that we can have for years to come.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jamil. Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. It's only been a few years since I think the then Conservative administration, as part of budget proposals, were looking to shut the Key Theatre. There was a big uproar about that, and a big campaign. Clearly, the people of Peterborough value the culture aspect of this city. The Key Theatre being a key component of that. And I think it's really good that, you know, as an administration, we're being seen to be, you know, investing in that, the culture of Peterborough, not just the Key Theatre, but across the museum and other aspects of the city. Because ultimately, you know, that is the heart of a city. It's the bit that makes us a bit special compared to maybe other cities, and we should continue to invest in that side of things. You know, you've got a lot of youth groups that use the Key Theatre. I think it's something that, you know, growing up, that, you know, in schools that use that use the Key Theatre, it's really, really important that we continue to do so.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment as well. Are there any other contributions or questions at all that members would like to make? Yes, I think summing up, it's really important to understand that for far too long, Peterborough has been left by the wayside when we've had actually areas of cultural and areas of cultural identity and landmarks of heritage that we have often previously in years gone by sometimes made the decision to overlook and to possibly shut down, and how as a cabinet we have revived that and working hard to revive it, and as put aptly by Councillor Cole, sorting it out. So I'm really pleased about this, which moves me on to the recommendation Cabinet, which is to, number one, approve the payment of compensation for business losses to landmark theatres as set out in the exempt annex for the impacts arising from the Key Theatre capital works and associated pantomime relocation. And number two, delegate authority to the Executive Director of Place and Economy, and in conjunction with the Executive Director of Corporate Services and Section 151 officer for the implementation of the payment. Are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Agreed? Thank you very much for that. Now, our next agenda item is, or was, disposal of the Goodshed Fletton Quays, which were the final terms. Now, in the meantime, I would like to advise Cabinet members that this item found on page 443 to 482 of the agenda, the request of myself and Councillor Mohammed Farouk, who are looking into the finer detail around this, this item is being deferred, not withdrawn, but deferred, and will not be considered at today's meeting until we can get sort of more firmed up assurances around certain matters. But Councillor Mohammed Farouk, would you like to add to that, please?
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. Well, first of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank the officers who have put a lot of hard work. Chris Pike, Adrian Davey, Adrian Chapman, and then particularly carrying that due diligence.
Sorry, we just, because we've deferred it, we don't need to go into the
that's
detail
fine,
of
that's
it,
fine, yeah.
but we can. Thank you. Item number 14, please, which is proposed expansion of the Heltwaite Special School St George's site. This item can be found on page 483 to 492 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. Heltwaite School is a popular local authority maintained school located across 3 sites within the Peterborough area. It currently caters for 210 pupils aged 4 to 19 years old who have severe learning difficulties, alongside secondary needs such as autism spectrum disorder, emotional wellbeing needs and physical health needs. Heltwaite Special School and the site located at St George's, which is in Park Ward, has proven track record of supporting our vulnerable young people. At this location, there's opportunity to expand into unused space, creating 2 much-needed additional classrooms, a sensory room, a new gym area, 2 calm rooms and a new hygiene suite. On creation of the additional classrooms, it will provide an additional 16 places for children with severe learning difficulties. This project is being funded by the High Needs Grant. If approved by Cabinet, the project will commence next month with a plan of opening ready for September 2026. Something that I've said many times is about keeping children who have special additional needs in their local area, and this is part of that plan. I don't like seeing any child bust out of this city, and with this expansion, children in the local area can access a local school and stay within their communities, which is really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Ray Bisbee on behalf of Councillor Neil Boyce.
Yes, it's more a comment than anything else. I mean, it's this council's responsibility to look after our vulnerable, especially the children, and to give them a chance at education. By expanding this school, it gives them a chance to educate even more children, which is what we should be doing anyway. So I would say this is one of the best things that we can do at the moment for the children, is to expand and give them a chance at education, which gives them a chance to reach their full potential.
Thank you. Very well made point, Councillor Bisbee. We have Councillor Angus Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. This is just to reiterate, the site is the Heltwaite St George's off Lawn Avenue in Park Ward, and not the Heltwaite site in North Bretton. I mean, I used to be a councillor for Bretton, so I'm well aware about that site and went through the consultation of that site, and I'm also well aware of this. And the big difference here is it's the site is within the envelope of the school, so it's already land which is not being used by the school because of the closure of the old hydrotherapy pool. So therefore, it's not expanded into new space or into any field area or anything like that. So it's totally different than what the Heltwaite was. And in North Bretton, St George's School, it won't have that sort of any sort of impact in that way, and it is very much needed for an expansion of children with special educational needs.
Yes, very well put. And I think the differentiation around the geography was necessary. So thank you for stating that. As somebody who lives in Bretton and actually is the councillor for Park Ward, it was really important. Councillor Zamir Ali.
I just wanted to echo the points that Katie made. There are only a limited number of SEN places in Peterborough, and there's always a growing demand for them. So I certainly welcome the expansion where our children in Peterborough should not be travelling half an hour, 45 minutes on a bus, on a taxi, and it will actually save the taxpayer and this council money for this facility to expand as well. So I just wanted to add that, just to clarify.
Really good point made. Anybody else want to make any contributions or ask any questions that contribute to the debate? Okay, well, we can also see that we've got obviously exempt appendices here, and you know, if you wish to move on, I think we've had some considered debate over this and considered commentary over this. I don't see anybody wanting to go into an exempt session over this, so we can safely move on. And again, this is another, just within this cabinet meeting, another example of this cabinet batting for our children, which actually should resonate across the city. We know that there are special educational needs children in these special settings as well, but also in other schools. So I would like this to be put on record that we are advocating for children across the board, not just in these special cities, special needs schools, but also across all schools too. But I think that this is a great discussion to be had. Now, we'll move on to the recommendations, therefore, as we're not going to the exempt session. And there are 4 recommendations to be had here, please. The first is to authorise the expansion of Helpwait Special School on the site of St George's. Number 2, agree the high-level project budget costs as set out in the exempt annex to this report, which we've all read. And number 3, delegate authority to the Executive Director for Children and Young People Service to authorise the award of contract for the works, subject to approval from Legal, Finance and Procurement. Number 4, delegate authority to the Executive Director for Corporate Services in consultation with the Director of Legal and Governance to take all necessary steps to give effect to the recommendations, including entering into any necessary legal agreements. Cabinet, I would like to ask you, are we content to agree these recommendations? Thank you. The silence there got me worried for a while. Right, we'll move on to agenda item number 15, which is additional licensing and HMOs, which are houses in multiple occupancy. This item can be found on pages 493 to 610 of the agenda. Councillor Christian Hogg, Cabinet Member for Housing and Regulatory Services. Please, can you introduce the report?
Yes, thank you, Leader, and I'm joined by officers on this. Before I kind of go into the preamble, as it were, I just wanted to, I've not been in post for that long, so clearly you can see from the pack. There's a lot of work gone into this, so it happened way before my time. So I'd like to say thank you very much to my predecessor, Alison Jones, for getting this work done. But of course to Jackie and Jonathan for putting the work here, because this is quite an extensive piece of work. So I digress. So just to so the additional licensing is a scheme introduced by local councils to require landlords to obtain a licence for homes in multiple occupancy, otherwise known as HMOs. It is not covered by mandatory HMO licensing rules. These schemes are implemented in areas where HMOs are poorly managed, posing risks to tenant safety and living conditions, and focus on smaller HMOs with 3 to 4 occupants sharing facilities. Members will be recommended to launch a citywide additional licensing scheme aimed at improving conditions for tenants living in multiple houses of multiple occupancy. The scheme is proposed to require all 3 or 4 person HMOs in Peterborough to be licensed. If approved, it will commence from January of next year and operate for a period of 5 years. It will help to protect private rented tenants and vulnerable groups from social and health effects of poorly managed and maintained properties with the private rental sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. So we move next on to contributions, debate, or any questions at all. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. I think I personally very much welcome this. the selective licensing which was brought in for other properties in particular areas have delivered thousands of inspections, have identified hundreds of thousands of hazards, and has improved the service to our vulnerable and those people in renting significantly. And I think this will go on to deliver that service across the board for HMOs as well. So it's not a question, but it's an observation. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for raising that pertinent point. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. As a tenant myself, not in an HMO, but it's everybody has the right to a safe, warm, secure home. Thinking about our most vulnerable residents, our children, our families, and there's also been some high-profile cases where young children have been ill as a result of poorly managed housing. What impact has the current scheme with the selected areas had in holding to account those landlords who should not be landlords?
I think we'll take that because of the background work that has gone into this. As Councillor Hogg very rightly said, it would be great for Jackie to elaborate on that, wouldn't it?
Let's try this one. Can you hear me? Sorry. It's not often I can't be heard, is it really? Just to the point to say is additional licensing is another slice of a designation that the authority can choose to run. And the whole priority around selective licensing, which is the one that currently runs at the moment, which I think you're referring to, the whole premises of that is to ensure that we have a level playing field for all tenants in all occupations in single dwellings for selective licensing. Additional licensing will take that further into 3 and 4 beds. What I can say, the previous selective licensing scheme some time ago for Peterborough had a very low turnover in relation to property improvement. The current selective licensing scheme, which Jonathan and I both work with, are on the year end, almost sort of middle of year 2. And in that year 2, we have licensed over 7,000 properties directly, and more than a half of those are at the point of either a full inspection or no inspection. One thing I would say on the point of vulnerability of adults and children is that that is far easier for a tenant to discuss with one of our inspecting officers their concerns than coming forward and putting a formal complaint in at the risk of eviction or retaliation. And so we've seen that as a huge physical turn for Peterborough, and we hope that that will be the same for additional licensing. It certainly is the same for mandatory HMO licensing, which is 5 or more beds, which is across the UK. So hopefully that helps.
We've got Councillor Angus Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. I do welcome this. It's been a long time coming because there's lots of areas in Peterborough which have needed it, which didn't have it before. So it's no longer selective. It's now, across the board. But my question really is, whilst we're doing this, will we be able to look and review the rules and the areas that selective licensing covers, not just for the tenants of those HMOs, but also for the communities those HMOs are in?
Yes, so simply put, yes. So that the selective licensing regime was designated by the Secretary of State at the time the legislation required that, and therefore we have to do an annual review. We're about to do the full second year review towards the end of this financial year, and that requires us to look at our licensing conditions and the quality of the delivery of that space, and that is also in the position for mandatory HMO licensing for us as a council to report back to Cabinet at some point, and also that would be the same for additional licensing. What selective licensing does, which is what I think you're referring to, the current one, is that's a 5-year designation, and we have to review it at the end in the last 6 months of that designation to decide whether we want to apply a further 5 years or bring it to an end. Does that help?
Yep, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Samir Ali.
I just want to get clarification. This is all around the city, isn't it? Not just the selective areas that have selective license already, because it is HMOs that you're referring to. And I know in certain areas, in selective areas, there are HMOs with selective licenses. So I just want to clarify, there is all over the city. This is a scheme for all over the city.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ali. Yes, so it is citywide for additional licensing. Any properties that are currently licensed under selective licensing that may be a shared property for 3 or 4, so these tenures change quite regularly from family to 3 or 4, and will be passported into additional licensing. So essentially their licence will change, and we'll do that in the most appropriate way to ensure there's no additional cost if you're already licensed. But additional licensing is citywide so that it matches mandatory HMO licensing, which is national and citywide.
Thank you. I think that's really reassuring. You've got a follow-up, haven't you?
Just to reassure residents, because I am one of those wards that has selective licensing, and the comments that I get quite often is, well, are there not bad tenants in other spaces or other wards in the city? So can you just clarify, why is it selective licensing just in those areas and not expanded all over the city as well as a wider scheme?
So I think when you say bad tenants, did you mean bad landlords?
No, my apologies. Yes, the bad landlords. I do apologise.
What I would say is there's good and bad in every organisation, isn't there? So,
Yes.
so, you know, there's problematic tenants as well as landlords. What I would say is the legislation is really clear that you have to designate based on powers of sort of deprivation and community impact, which is why selective licensing is less likely to be citywide. What I would say is nationally, lots of cities have made selective licensing citywide now. The legislation has changed considerably since we all started doing this in 2004. Which shows my age a bit. But what I would suggest is that our next review, which we do in 26-27 for the Secretary of State, we may be asked to consider whether we apply it for citywide, and if that was the case, we would come back to Cabinet.
That was another question I was going to do, but yeah, you've just answered that one as well, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Samir Ali. I'm just looking around the room to see if there are any other questions at all or contributions. None at all? Well, thank you very much for that comprehensive report. In summarising, I think that this demonstrates that officers and obviously Cabinet members here are committed to ensuring that we maintain high standards for tenants that are living in HMOs, which has been a concern that has been raised by many of our residents, in which HMOs are quite prevalent. So I really actually do welcome this report here, but then we move on to the recommendations. If nobody else has any contributions, I'm just looking around. No. So there are quite a number of recommendation here, up to 6, and 6 has got some sub-recommendations, which I will try and read out clearly and comprehensively as much as I can. So the first recommendation asks us to approve the designation of a citywide additional licensing scheme for the full period of 5 years for a designated period that will be between the 26th of January 2026 to the 25th of January 2031, following the required statutory period of 3 months post-designation of the scheme before it can be enforced. The second recommendation is to ask members to endorse to accept the additional license conditions for all associated 3 and 4 bedroom licensed properties as detailed in the report appendices. The third recommendation asks members to accept the updated HMO licensing license conditions for all associated 5 or more bedroom licensed properties as detailed in the report appendices. The fourth ask is to accept the updated civil penalties policy in the report appendices. The fifth ask is to agree to a procurement and market testing exercise to develop a digital HMO licensing process for all associated 5 or more bedroom licensed properties in line with selective licensing and additional licensing if designated. The sixth ask, with the 4 clauses actually, is it 3? No, it's 4. 3 clauses, is to authorise the Director of Housing and Communities, following consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing and Regulatory Services, to 1. Ensure compliance in all respects with all relevant procedures and formalities applicable to the authorisation of such schemes. 2. Keep the proposed scheme under review during the designation lifetime and agree any minor changes to the proposed implementation and delivery, including administration, fees, and conditions, and give all necessary statutory notifications. 3. Ensure that all statutory notifications are carried out in the prescribed manner for the designation and to take all necessary steps. Very forensic, very detailed. I hope that we're all able to get behind these recommendations, and are we content to agree them after that discussion and questions at all? Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. Now, I think we're moving on to the last, I think we've been really good, haven't we, on time? And there's been some really good discussion, and obviously, again, welcome to Councillor Fitzgerald, the leader of the Conservative group, and we've welcomed questions from Councillor Howard as well. It's good to see that representation. So thank you very much for attending. So we have now agenda item number 16, which is pages 611 to 632. Which is review of governance of council-owned entities. This item can be found on pages 611 to 632 of the agenda, just as I said. And Councillor Mohammed Jamil, are you going to close the meeting by presenting your report on this in your capacity as Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Leader. It gives me the greatest of pleasure to do the last item on the agenda today. As members are aware, the Council owns or has an interest in several companies and joint ventures, and we have been making good progress to improve the governance of those entities. We've also reduced the number of Council-owned entities. The report before you today makes proposals about the future management and oversight of Council-owned entities. The proposals draw on best practice and set out standards and principles the Council will apply in the future to ensure that the Council and the entities it owns or controls operate transparently, compliantly, and with clear accountabilities. And today I recommend to you today the report that's in the pack. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Are there any contributions, questions at all across the... we do have Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I want to put it on record and thank Neil MacArthur. While in his tenure here, he sorted out many of the limited companies we've had, where some were not functional, some were not in great shape, and some he closed down, and others he streamlined them to deliver the best possible result for our council. So thank you for that. And I think this document is well needed. Well needed because the two key things you need is control and transparency. When you set up a limited company, a little bit away, sometimes the transparency is away from public and it's not in public eyes. So the transparency is key, but equally, you relinquish the control of it because they're a limited company and they're a little bit away from the council. So I think this document now sets that out, that the council keeps the control of all the operations, make sure that the right number of directors are on it from the right fields, and also is transparent to the public. So I'm in full support of this document.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Farouk. Anybody else? Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Leader, I'd also like to echo my thanks to the work Neil has done, but it's also like to inform everyone that this is an ongoing piece of work with this and our constitution, because it's something that we need to have a look at importantly. And then, with Neil's help, we've made strides as to, updating our constitution. Sadly, Neil's not going to be here to finish his work, but I'd like to thank him for all the work he's done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a great contribution. Anybody else who'd like to make a contribution at all? No? Well, I'd like to echo those thoughts in summary to our Director of Legal and Governance, Neil. Thank you for having oversight over this and having a look at the governance around this, and to ensure that we are transparent as a council. I think that's very important. It's one of our core values and strategic values as well. So I'm sure everybody here joins me in echoing those thoughts. And if there are no other contributions or questions at all, we will move to the recommendations, colleagues. So, are we recommended to approve the company's governance handbook, which is indeed obviously a work in progress, but we note that this is the correct way to move forward in the way of transparency and accountability for our council? Agreed? Thank you. Now, that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you very much. And I all wish you a safe journey home, and thank you for your contributions, and indeed thanks to our opposition members who have attended today. Thank you.